told you a global power was toppled not by a war, but by a secret plan. In 1953, Iran's future was stolen in just 24 hours. No tanks, no official invasions. Just an invisible operation conducted from the shadows by people whose names the world didn't even know. An elected prime minister was removed without a single shot being fired. Decades later, declassified files revealed a truth that shook the entire world. This wasn't politics or diplomacy. This was a silent war of lies, money, and propaganda that redrew the map of global power. This is the story they kept hidden, the CIA's secret war in Iran. Are you ready to see what's behind the curtain?
It began with a file that was never meant to be opened. A file locked in shadows stamped with the words, "Top Secret." Inside it was a story the world was never supposed to know. A story of a government toppled without tanks. A war fought without soldiers. A mission carried out not on battlefields but inside minds. This is the CIA's hidden war in Iran. In the early 1950s, a quiet storm was rising in the Middle East. A storm created not by weapons, but by one man who dared to challenge an empire. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh. To the Iranian people, he was a hero. To the West, he was a threat. To the British Empire, he was a danger greater than any army, because Mossadegh did something no one expected. He took back Iran's oil, not with force, but with a signature. For decades, British companies took Iran's oil, made billions, and gave Iran almost nothing. But Mossadegh said, "This oil belongs to our people." The world shook. In London, leaders panicked. In Washington, alarms went off. A nationalized oil industry meant a new kind of power. A Middle Eastern nation controlling its own future. That was unacceptable. So a phone call went out from London to the United States. A call that would change history. Washington listened. And inside a dark room in Langley, Virginia, a plan began to take shape. A plan run by two powerful brothers, John Foster Dulles and Allen Dulles. One controlled America's foreign policy. The other controlled the CIA. Their conclusion was simple. Mossadegh must go. And so Operation TPAJAX was born. It wasn't a military invasion. It wasn't an open war. It was a psychological battlefield. A war of newspapers, radio stations, staged protests, and carefully crafted chaos. To run this secret mission, they chose one man, Kermit Roosevelt, the grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt. A man trained to operate in shadows. He arrived in Tehran silently, with bags full of cash, a network of spies, and a blueprint to break a nation from the inside. The first strike was information. CIA-funded newspapers printed lies about Mossadegh every morning. They called him unstable. They called him a communist. They called him a threat to Iran itself. Each headline was a bullet. Each radio broadcast was a push toward fear. Then came the second weapon, money. Stacks of US dollars flowed into the hands of street gangs, political opportunists, and fake religious leaders willing to shout anything for a price. Paid mobs were unleashed into Tehran. Some pretended to support Mossadegh. Some pretended to oppose him. The goal was confusion and chaos. Every shout, every clash, every broken window was part of a script written thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was drowning in fear. His power was slipping, his authority shrinking, and every day Mossadegh grew more popular. The CIA used that fear. They whispered lies. They forged documents. They staged conspiracies. And slowly the Shah began to believe that only the United States could save him. So he agreed to sign a royal decree, a decree authorizing Mossadegh's removal. It was the signature the CIA needed. But the moment came with a price. The Shah panicked and fled the country. Tehran now stood on the edge of collapse. One leader in exile, one leader still in power, and a foreign agency pulling strings in the dark. The streets turned into battlegrounds of misinformation. CIA agents disguised as civilians directed riots. Paid mobs stormed newspapers, burned offices, attacked civilians. Fear spread like wildfire. And while the world slept, Iran walked straight into a trap designed in Washington and London. This was no longer politics. This was a silent war, and the final blow was about to fall. Tehran woke up on the morning of August 19, 1953, not knowing that by nightfall, the nation would be rewritten. The operation had already failed once. The first coup attempt collapsed in confusion. CIA agents scattered. The Shah had fled in panic, and Washington considered shutting everything down. But Kermit Roosevelt refused to leave. From a quiet villa in northern Tehran, he worked through the night, rebuilding the coup plan piece by piece, pulling every hidden wire left in the city. And now, the final act was ready. It began with a whisper, a rumor, a lie so powerful that it spread like wildfire. Mossadegh is overthrowing the Shah. We must rise to save Iran. Soon that whisper turned into footsteps. Footsteps became a march, and the march exploded into a street-wide thunder as paid mobs, mercenaries, and confused civilians flooded the capital. Some carried photos of the Shah. Some carried knives. Some carried nothing but anger. But all of them carried the illusion the CIA wanted. Tehran was burning, not from gunfire, but from manipulated emotion. By noon, the city was a battleground of staged chaos. CIA-funded mobs stormed government offices. They attacked newspapers loyal to Mossadegh. They beat anyone who looked like they supported the prime minister. And above all this, American agents watched from rooftops, guiding the flow of violence like puppeteers. Inside his house, Mossadegh heard the echoes of destruction. For years, he stood against empires, against pressure, against threats. But now he was facing a war he couldn't see, a war created from the shadows. Then came the moment. A group of pro-Shah military officers, secretly backed by the CIA, moved toward Mossadegh's residence. Tanks rolled through the streets. Soldiers fired into the air. Crowds screamed and scattered. Within minutes, the final stage of the coup had begun. Mossadegh's guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and already overwhelmed by the chaos outside. A tank shell slammed into the prime minister's home, then another. Walls collapsed, smoke filled the air, and the house that symbolized Iranian democracy crumbled under the weight of a foreign conspiracy. Mossadegh escaped over a garden wall, not out of fear, but because he believed bloodshed would destroy the nation he loved. He surrendered shortly after, calm, silent, dignified, not knowing that history would remember him as a symbol of resistance. By evening, a new government was declared. General Fazlollah Zahedi, handpicked by the CIA, took control of Tehran, and the Shah, who had fled only days before, returned to Iran like a king restored. Crowds were forced into the streets to celebrate. Flags waved, guns fired into the air. Loudspeakers blasted music, but behind the staged joy, everyone knew the truth. Iran's destiny had been rewritten, not by its people, not by its leaders, but by a handful of men, hiding behind press releases and diplomatic smiles. Operation TPAJAX was complete. The coup succeeded, and a new era of control began. Oil contracts were quietly signed. British and American companies returned to Iran's oil fields. Billions of dollars flowed out of the country once again. The Shah, strengthened by CIA support, built a regime that looked modern on the surface, but beneath the glitter, ran on fear, surveillance, and brutality. For years, the truth of the coup stayed hidden. Documents were locked away, witnesses silenced, and the world believed the official story. But history has a way of revealing secrets. Decades later, declassified files exposed what truly happened. The riots, the propaganda, the bribed politicians, the scripted chaos, all orchestrated from thousands of miles away. It was one of the first major CIA coups of the Cold War, and one of the most defining, because what happened in Iran did not stay in Iran. It shaped revolutions, it shaped alliances, it shaped distrust between nations that continues to this day. And it sent a message across the world, a message written not in ink, but in shadows. If a government stands against powerful interests, it can be removed without warning, without tanks, without a single soldier crossing a border, just by a whisper and a carefully crafted lie. This was the CIA's hidden war in Iran, and the world is still living with its consequences. In the years that followed the coup, Iran stood at a crossroads, a nation outwardly modern, but inwardly wounded. The Shah ruled with iron confidence, backed by Western power, protected by intelligence agencies, and surrounded by wealth that few Iranians ever touched. But beneath the surface, resentment grew like a silent fire. Every family remembered the day democracy was stolen. Every marketplace whispered the same truth. that Iran's fate had been sold to foreign hands. Universities filled with anger, mosques filled with frustration, streets filled with questions that no one dared to ask out loud. And as the years passed, the wound created in 1953 only deepened. For Washington and London, the coup was a success, a victory of strategy, a triumph of influence. But for Iran, it was the beginning of a storm that would take 26 years to rise. Because you can remove a leader, you can break a movement, you can silence newspapers, ban parties, control radio stations, but you can't erase memory, and the memory of 1953 lived on in every corner of Iran. By the late 1970s, millions of voices, young and old, rich and poor, began to unite. They had different dreams, different ideologies, but one shared belief: we must take back our country. Protests swept across the nation. The Shah's regime trembled, and once again, the world watched Iran, not from above the oil fields, but from the edge of history. The revolution that erupted in 1979 was not born in a single moment. It did not begin with a speech, or a march, or a fire. It began in 1953, when a foreign coup taught an entire generation that their voices could be ignored, their votes erased, their future stolen. The fall of the Shah, the rise of the Islamic Republic, the decades of tension with the West, all traced back to one operation, carried out in the shadows of the Cold War. And even today, as nations argue, as diplomats negotiate, as headlines echo with conflicts and sanctions, the invisible fingerprints of Operation TPAJAX remain on every conversation. A coup that lasted just a few days, reshaped global politics for generations. Because power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it pays, sometimes it manipulates, sometimes it hides behind the mask of freedom while taking freedom away. The CIA's hidden war in Iran was more than a political operation. It was a turning point, a blueprint for covert intervention that would be repeated in countries across the world: Guatemala, Chile, Congo, Vietnam, Afghanistan, nations where silent wars were fought, not with armies, but with strategies born in that first coup. And yet, no matter how many documents are stamped top secret, no matter how many stories are buried, history eventually speaks. Today, the truth of 1953 is no longer a secret. It lives in declassified files, in personal testimonies, in the scars carried by a nation that never forgot. And as we look back at the hidden war waged in Iran, we are reminded of a simple, powerful fact. When truth is suppressed, it does not die. It waits. And one day, it returns with a voice stronger than silence. This is that voice. This is the story they tried to bury. A story of power, deception, courage, and consequence. A story that changed Iran, changed America, changed the Middle East, and changed the world. And even today, from Washington to Tehran, from classrooms to war rooms, from oil fields to diplomatic tables, the echoes of 1953 still shape the future. Because the past is never gone. It is only hidden, waiting to be uncovered. This was the CIA's hidden war in Iran, the 1953 coup exposed.